So this is my son Justin's house. We had a big day yesterday. Well, Tuesday was actually the big day. We celebrated yesterday, but our first grandbaby was born a year ago. So we had a big birthday party for him and everything yesterday, and it was a good time. Kind of, kept me away from getting some projects done, but it's fine. So we did renovation in his backyard. He called me on Thursday and was talking about it, and I said, hey, let's just go ahead and do it. I'll help you out. I have grass seed. We'll just go ahead and get her done. And so we just kind of did this on the fly. We did not do a kill out. We did not do anything. What you see is what we did. We basically just cleaned up his backyard, got all the tree trash out of his yard, raked it up, got rid of it, scalped it, mowed it really, really short. My Honda lawnmower there, it actually goes down to 3/4 of an inch. And it was kissing ground in a couple of areas. Now, he's got a lot of rocks. His soil was a little bit hard. So what I did first what we did put a sprinkler system in. And that was kind of one of the first things that got this topic going between me and him. Was he was talking about this kit that he bought. So right here, we're digging trenches. So we started this on a Saturday a few weeks ago, and we really didn't have much time. He had something he needed to do later in the afternoon, and I got over there at about 11, I think. And at 2, we pretty much had completed putting in the sprinklers. We dug the trenches. He has a lot of trees in his backyard, so there were some big roots that we had to work around. So what we did was we kind of dug under the roots. We didn't take the big roots out. We tried to save as many roots as possible for the trees. And we just dug under the roots so we could just shoot the tube underneath. And he bought a kit sprinkler system. So this is not PVC. This is like I guess you would say a PEX kind of a setup. It's a Home Depot kit. It comes with sprinkler heads, the tubing, a bunch of fittings, and when you map your plan out, you just need to decide exactly what kind of fittings you need and how many you need to finish the project, because I'm sure the kit's not going to have everything you need. He bought a couple extra T's and some couplers and some things like that so we can get it hooked up. Video's a little jumpy when I take it with my camera because I was not using one of those gimbal things. I did have a friend give me one, and I finally figured out how to use it, so I'm starting to use that a little bit more because it does take some really good, stable video. So this is just kind of me walking around with the camera, and these are our trenches, all nice and done here. Like I said, we got them dug up, and it really didn't take us more than maybe hour and a half maybe to dig all these trenches. The best time to dig trenches if you're doing it with shovel is when it's wet, it's spring. So here he is. This is the tube that he got with the kit. Like I said, I think it's like a PEX type of a tubing. And, we're just cutting it with regular PVC cutters. And fittings just push together, and they're those nice, easy slip. There's no glue, no anything that you need to put in it. So we had already mapped out where we needed to put the sprinklers. I believe with the kit and the setup you do on it, it comes with a grid chart, so you can make a grid and you can see how far the sprinklers are going to cover, where you want to put them, that sort of thing, how much coverage you're going to get, and that sort of thing. So we decided on 2 runs, but we actually did 1 because he kind of felt that we could probably get it all done in 1 run. And that was, you're going to see, that was a mistake. We kind of went through all this. We tested it and we ran it, and it started working. Before we hooked the sprinklers up, the sprinkler heads up, just a little bit back, we did purge the tubing to make sure all the dirt was out of it before you put any sprinkler heads on it. That's probably the one biggest and most important thing to do when you actually do a sprinkler system. You get your pipe put in, everything all set up, glued, whatever. If you're doing PVC, make sure all your fittings are good. Flush it with water, just in case there's any sand or dirt particles in there, because you want to get all that stuff out. So this is going to kind of flood the tunnels, the trenches a little bit, but you know, you just run it for just 30 seconds, whatever, just enough to get the water to run out of it. And then you hook sprinkler heads up, and then you can start making sure your sprinkler head, your pressure's working and all that kind of stuff. Down here on this, he's putting in it's a drain for the system. I don't believe drain was the name that they used for it, but it basically is just an area where maybe it's an anti-siphon. But we ended up digging this part down a little bit more and putting some drain rock in it, because basically what it's going to do is it's going to drain out the water out of the pipe. Here we go. This is us doing the flushing of the system right here, making sure all the ends are getting water coming through them and none of the fittings are leaking. I mean, there's no real pressure on it, so it's hard to really test the fittings just to make sure they're working. So here we now have sprinklers kind of going. They're not adjusted or anything, they're just on, and we're seeing how they're doing. You can see here, you know, the trench is flooded from the flush. But we're just kind of making sure that the sprinklers are working. Looks like it's going to work and all that kind of stuff. So at this point, we pretty much ended there that day with that. We got all that done in about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. This is the next morning. Came back over. We started early, about 8 o'clock, and we just went to town on getting the front and the backyard done. Ended up spending till about 3 o'clock that afternoon getting both his backyard and front yard done. He actually did run a trench from the backyard to the front yard so he could run sprinkler heads in the front yard. His front yard is really, really small. It's nothing at all. He did probably 3 times the amount of trenching to get a pipe back there than the amount of trench he had to put in the front yard. He's got, like, I believe 3 sprinkler heads. It's very small. So we buried all the trenches, got them down, you know, tried to compact them as good as possible. And then I got my Sunjo dethatcher out. And I want to tell you right now, this Sunjo, I said it before, I'll say it again. I have abused this thing to no end. And, you know, it has a dethatcher blade and a scarifying blade, and I'm using the scarifying blade, the verticut or whatever you want to cut it. It's just a bunch of blades, vertical, and there's like six or so across on it. You know, this is only about 20 inches wide. It's battery operated, but he has a lot of rocks in his soil, and man, this thing was kicking up rocks, chewing it up. And the reason why I'm using the scarifying blade, and I'm using it at a really low setting, was because I'm going to pause this real quick. His soil was a little compacted, a little hard. It wasn't terribly hard, but you know, the top was, because you know, he has a dog and all that stuff, and he had done his yard before and just kind of let it go, didn't water it, didn't do anything. You know, the dog would go out there and dig, and I'm sure the dog's going to go back out there and dig. You probably have seen the dog running around here. Very active, you know, a lot of energy dog that they have there, Luna. And so scarifying it, what it did was it kind of was like a little mini rototiller action that we did on the yard. You know, it'll churn up the dirt, the top layer, enough to kind of loosen that up, because what you see here is we're actually adding topsoil, and we're adding topsoil to you know, help with the looseness and thickness of the dirt level where we're going to put the seed, to give it really good seed to soil connection, you know, contact. And so we're just using topsoil, and I think it was topsoil, organic compost, and lawn soil. I don't know, we had like 20 bags of each. It was on sale at Home Depot when we got them and stuff like that. You know, it was about $100, $120, something like that. I can't remember exactly. And we basically spread it out. Now, I started trying to spread this out with my compost, my peat moss spreader, but it's so wet and it's so thick and so chunky that that did not work very well. So we ended up just spreading the bags out and raking it out. And you're going to see in here, we used rake, we used my level rake, and then we also used my drag. And my drag's gonna be coming up here in a second after we, do this. But this is just made, preparation for a really good seed bed, and that's really what you want to concentrate on when you are. There's my drag right there. So you see, it's just 2 4x4s. It's got the rope, so you can drag it. And like I said, I've used this method since I was a kid. My dad taught me how to do it. He probably read somewhere about doing this. And you basically are just dragging it back and forth, and you're not doing it so much to get the soil perfectly level and all that kind of stuff. What you're doing is you're doing it so you get an 8-foot span area that you're dragging across, and you can actually see underneath the board the low and the high spots as you're dragging it. And if you drag it a couple of times, you're kind of able to level out a lot of that soil that's underneath. But if you have some low spots, you can come in, you can fill it in, you can rake some over. Take down some high spots and all that kind of stuff. So I want to just kind of jump back a little bit here. I'm trying to keep up with the video. When I edit these videos, I just edit them, trying to make them, as time efficient as possible. But going back to the preparation site, I said that we didn't do anything to prep this soil. Now, if your yard is really bad, got a lot of weeds and all that kind of stuff, your best method to starting this project, to getting to this point right here where you're ready to plant seed, you're going to do all the processes we did. But before you even start, you're going to want to kill everything off. And you're going to want to use some glyphosate. I have some glyphosate down here. I get this is 100% glyphosate. I get this at the farm supply store. This is called Intimidator Plus herbicide. It's a non-selective, so that means it kills everything. It's 41% glyphosate. And it's 2.5 gallons because I use this all around my yard and stuff like this. This is what I use in my beds to kill weeds and stuff like that. We're going to talk about some weed killer products a little bit later in the video, because that's one of the things with all the projects I've been doing that have really gotten neglected. So if you got a really bad yard, it's really overgrown, got lots of weeds, crabgrass, all kinds of stuff, your best thing to do a nice, easy reno on it is just to kill it all off. About a month beforehand, spray a really strong solution of glyphosate, put it in a pump sprayer, whatever you have, make it a little stronger than the norm. With this product that I have, the instructions actually come so you can mix it to a specific, what's the word I'm looking for? You can make it as strong as you need to. It gives you percentages. If you add 6 ounces per gallon, then you're going to get this percentage. If you add 8 ounces, you're going to get this. And it just kind of gives you, so the first application I would do really strong, whatever the strongest one is. I think it's like 6.5 ounces per gallon is, I believe, what I use as a strong mix. Maybe it's 8. But the thing is, you're killing everything off, so it's something that you can put down and as a first application and kill everything. You're probably going to have to go back a couple weeks later and spray it again, because some things aren't going to necessarily get killed out. If you have grass in there and it's a really good, strong growing grass, it may need a second hit. So you want to prepare to have enough time before you want to start your project to get your glyphosate down, to get everything killed off. Because basically there's a couple of things you can do once you kill everything off. You could do what I did a couple of years ago, rent a sod cutter. If it's all grass that you're cutting out, cut out the grass with the sod cutter, and then come in with a rototiller and rototill the dirt up. Now, I've recommended this for you to do if you have really compacted clay soil, because if you have clay soil, it's just going to compact again, and everybody tells you to aerate and all that kind of stuff. And you can do an aeration on it if you want to do a little less work. It will work. You'll be able to get some topsoil down in it, but you basically want to come in after you remove the sod or aerate and put a good layer of topsoil down. Now, I put a really good layer down on my yard because I wanted all good soil on the top. So I've put down over 20 yards of topsoil over the last 2 renovations I've done on my yard. And my yard is pretty soft. I don't really have clay, but I did have some areas that were really hard. So if you're dealing with a really hard soil, man, I would really suggest you do a full removal of your grass and a rototill, a shaker like I've shown previously with a concrete motor on it to shake out all the grass clumps, the root clumps. Get your soil really prepared. That's the most important thing you can do if you want to start and have a really nice lawn. If you just want a regular lawn that you don't care about, like my son, he didn't care. He says, Dad, I don't care what kind of grass, I don't care anything. I don't want to kill the stuff. I just want to get this project done, get some grass growing, have something out there for Luna to lay in, on a Saturday or on the weekdays, whatever, that kind of thing. I don't really care how it looks. It's all fine. So we just did this really quick. It's still growing, it's still cooking because he's got a lot of shade back here, and we'll get to where I am right now on the spraying. I'm spraying Tenacity right now. Tenacity is one of the only things you can spray as a pre and post emergent, and I'll have some video of how that works in this to show you how well the Tenacity does as a post emergent. One thing about Tenacity is it's fine fescue doesn't really like Tenacity. Now this is fine fescue that I put down. This is a shade mix, my shade mix that I use, and it's actually red creeping fescue, and it is a fine fescue, and fine fescues are a little bit more they're not as tolerant to the Tenacity. And on the seeding side, it's not going to stop your grass from growing or sprouting, but what it's going to do is it's probably going to slow it down a little bit. It is taking a little while. With all the shade that he gets in his backyard, you can see it's totally shaded out there. And it's probably 11-ish by now. He gets very little sun back here. So it's going to kind of slow down the germination rate on your seed. But it does a great job for keeping weeds out. Now, if you're doing Kentucky bluegrass, you're doing tall fescue, turf type tall fescue, all those kinds of things, it works really well. With the warm season grasses, I'm not really familiar with warm season. I'm going to talk about something that I have going on here later in this video. But, on cool season, that's where I really understand, things. So Tenacity will work well with all grasses, but the fine fescue is sensitive to the Tenacity. So once I sprayed the Tenacity down, I came with my drop spreader, and I use a drop spreader to drop seed. That's all I use. I don't do a broadcast spreader. I don't do any of that kind of stuff. I have a Scott's drop spreader, and I really hate it. I really don't like any Scott's products. I don't use any Scott's fertilizers, anything like that. I've said that before. Every time Scott's comes up, I will say that. I don't like Scott's as a company. There's a couple of reasons why. But that drop spreader really sucks. But I use it and I get it to work for me. So this is his front yard right here that we're working on getting done. We basically came through it really quick. We just really mowed it. I didn't even really do the dethatching on this, the scarifying. I just kind of came out there and I just, laid the topsoil. It was pretty soft. I mowed it down, laid the seed. He had already had all the sprinklers in and stuff like that. And this is actually Kentucky bluegrass. And you want to talk about a slow growing grass? Kentucky bluegrass takes a long time to germinate. If you're impatient, don't grow Kentucky bluegrass. But if you want a really good grass, Kentucky bluegrass is great grass. It's what I have in my front yard. So I did the peat moss, I did everything, got it all dialed in, I got his sprinklers going and stuff like that. He actually had to leave at like 2, so I finished this last part off by myself. I just wanted to get it done. Here's a little example. I think this was like 2 weeks after. This is the Kentucky bluegrass in the front. Now, because we didn't kill off his old grass is really going to come through. But you see right here, these white spots, that's actually the tenacity bleaching working. And you see it's all up here too. I don't know what these kind of weeds are called, but they're annoying and they're in a lot of grasses. But so that's the tenacity actually working on these weeds, killing them. And that's how tenacity works. It bleaches them. It I believe, starves them of chlorophyll. And they basically bleach out and die. This is his backyard. This is the red creeping fescue. And like I said, this is just a couple of weeks. I don't even think it's 2 weeks after. I guess it probably is because it's the weekend. So it's probably 2 weeks after he planted. And, it's going through really nice. It started sprouting really good. So this is just kind of an example of how the tenacity worked on the fine fescue. As far as, actually, I think this is 3 weeks. This might be 21 days. Because I know the Kentucky bluegrass, it takes forever to germinate. So just got a lot of germination going on through here, and it's a nice slow process. We didn't put any fertilizer down. You've heard me talk about it before. I'm not a big fertilizer guy. I don't like putting a lot of phosphorus down. I don't like putting a lot of potassium down. Here again, here's some more. This is tenacity bleaching right here, killing off the weeds. And the tenacity is also going to prevent weeds. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Sorry not to slurp and gulp in your, speakers there. But so this is some drone video I did the next weekend. Still really slow growing. It doesn't really take off that quick. Like I said, this doesn't get a lot of light back here. So actually, I think this was the same day, to tell you the truth. I did pictures and everything. So this was the next weekend. I think this was the weekend after. Finally, talked him into mowing and doing that sort of thing. He had only mowed the front. He hadn't mowed the back. This is where, when you give advice, you could lead a horse to water. You can't make him drink. I was telling him that, he really needed to, concentrate on mowing once the grass started growing. This was, I believe this is yesterday. This is the backyard. I got him to mow. I had one over there earlier and he hadn't mowed yet. And I told him he really needs to mow. Because what's happening is the old grass is growing so tall, it's preventing the new grass from getting sunlight and growing. So this is the front yard with the Kentucky bluegrass. It's doing pretty good. So it's going to take, probably another 2 weeks, but, I told him he really needs to concentrate on mowing, because the biggest thing about getting your grass to grow is mowing. Mowing is going to encourage growth. And I can't stress that to you more. Once the grass has grown tall enough to where you can start mowing it, because that is going to encourage root growth, root development. It's going to encourage the grass to grow more, because it's going to want to, extend that growth, the length and all that of what you cut off. So that's the project that I did at my son's house, doing his yard.